Everybody, hey, ask yourself, man, what are you made of? Are you made out of excuses or are you made out of action? Right now, I'm doing some squats while I'm recording this podcast to make sure you get the word out to you guys. But we've all been there. We've all made excuses for ourselves, such as I'm too busy. Right? That's a lame excuse. I'm gonna tell you why it's a lame excuse. No matter how busy you are, I bet you ask yourself, do you make time for Netflix? Do you make time to make yourself food? Do you make time to go on a walk? Do you make time to play video games? What is something that is not essential that you make time for? So then, if you make time, if you got an hour to watch TV, hour for Netflix, hour video games, then you have an hour to do something that's going to improve your life. All right. So that's why we say everybody's been there, all been made out of excuses when everything in our life is seemingly out of our control and we're letting others control our lives. That's when we're living out of excuses. When we live out of action is when we are purpose driven, pushing our own factors that we have control over, right? Like you worry about the things you can control, not things you cannot control. Good example. I can't control that I got to go to work every day because the president got rid of remote work, telework, etc. But what I can control is what I do when I'm there. So when I get there, my job description don't change. So I still have the latitude to create my own schedule, except for meetings. So I do the things that I normally would do for myself and make best use of my time, like schoolwork. I'll do those at work if I have time after I've finished all my tasking for the day. Because I'm not one to dilly dally. I can do about 8 hours of work in 4 hours. And I'm not saying that to brag, that's just out of years and years of practice of blocking everybody and everything out and getting straight to it and getting it done, and then taking the rest of the time for myself. Right? So that's an example of me taking action on something that I have true no control over, but then taking advantage of things I do have control over. So this is a finance podcast, right? So I'm going to tie it all in. Counting time and time again, I talk to people and I ask them, why don't you have a brokerage account? Why don't you have a Roth IRA? Why don't you have life insurance? You got kids, right? You and your wife, you and your husband, etc. Y'all are living paycheck to paycheck. If you die, what happens? That's a truth bomb for you. If you die, what happens? Who's going to take that burden? Your wife and your family that you leave behind. They take that burden. So let's say you got a debt. You got a debt of 400,000, being the house, and you can only afford it right now because of your job. You pass, your job's gone, your funding's gone. Therefore, the money to pay for that house is gone. So now your spouse has to pick up the pieces and sell things or do whatever the case is. And God forbid that you didn't put them as a third party on the mortgage, or God forbid that you did not put them as part of the mortgage when you did it, it was just on your credit. That's going to automatically go into probate. What does that mean? The state's going to own your property temporarily and they will decide what happens with it, which means you can go from owning a home, living a great life, being kicked out back into the apartments or whatever that situation looks for you, right? It literally takes not even 10 to 30 minutes to do these things that I'm talking about. If you're interested in learning more about it, reach out to me at my email. I'll put it on this, put it in the description. It's ian.setting the record at straight. It's STR8, number 8, at gmail.com. Reach out to me and I'll get you on a call. I'll do a free financial needs analysis. I'll look at your financial situation. We can do a budget. I'll tell you exactly what you need, whether you need life insurance, whether you already have it, how much you actually need. Take a look at your budget, see how much money you can put towards savings, towards getting out of debt. What I live for is to get people out of this same situation that I have been in for pretty much the majority of my life. Until 2019 is when I took action on my life and I started taking over and taking control of my financial situation. And it started with not trying to stay out with the Jones. Do my own thing, not worried about what other people are trying to do. That's where it starts. Yes, you may give up a few things, but in the long run, it's going to be for the best, man. Now I'm in a situation where I get to travel, I get to do all kinds of things worry free, not worrying about if something happens to me, what's going to happen to my family. I know if something happens to me, God forbid, I know my current job, that's 500 grand of life insurance. I know privately, I have my own additional, that's another 500 grand. So I got my family covered for $1 million. So if I die right now, the house is paid off, all debts are paid off. Because most people, y'all don't realize and think about this, right? But debts do not die with you. If you are like a single parent, for example, and the other person's out of the way or they move to a different country or whatever the case it is, right? When you die, those debts don't die. So the bill collectors will next pass that on to your children. It gets passed on to your children. So now you're starting your children off at a disadvantage. If you're sending your kids to college, you're doing the whole thing of I want my kids to work for their living, right? I understand what the premise you're trying to do and what you're trying to do, trying to make them be responsible adults. But unfortunately, what will happen is they will go into debt and they will start off in the exact situation that you started off on. And if you're at a disadvantage, congratulations. Now you just put your kids at a disadvantage. So now they're $100,000 in debt. They just started off at a job, they're going to get $30,000 a year. And now they're going to be in debt for the rest of their life because they're going to do like everyone else does. And they're going to pay the minimal payments and get charged out the wazoo on interest. These are things that I'm all passionate about, helping people not make those same mistakes that I made. What I do in my company's name is Destined for Financial Greatness. What I do is I basically bestow upon you and take action with you to take the same milestones that took me 20 years for you to do it in a year, for you to do it in 6 months, 3 months, a month, depending on what the milestone is. I've already laid out those milestones. That is life insurance. That is having a brokerage account. That is having a Roth IRA account. That means paying off debt, having a high yield savings account. These are all things that each one of you need to have. I love you guys. If you're interested in anything I said or you felt it, reach out through email. I'll get back to you.